Hello, viewers and podcast listeners. Thank you for joining me today here at XRaised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. My name is Miles, your host, and I'm here to explore the intersection of human judgment and artificial intelligence in the legal world. Because why not? And our guest is someone who embodies this crossroad with remarkable finesse. Meet Laina Chan, a distinguished barrister with over 2 decades of experience in complex commercial disputes, ranging from construction law to professional indemnity claims. Her accolades include being named the 2021 Lawyers Weekly Female Barrister of the Year and recognized as one of the top 100 women in construction in 2023. But this achiever isn't just a legal luminary. She's also a visionary entrepreneur leading MiAI Law, pioneering AI-driven solutions to make legal research more efficient and accessible, particularly for those in underserved communities. With a background that spans pure mathematics, law, and executive education from Harvard Business School, she brings a unique blend of analytical rigor and strategic insight to the table. I'm very grateful to have the pleasure of having a regular conversation with the founder and chief executive officer of MiAI Law, one of my favorites, Laina Chan. Hey, Laina.
Hi, Miles. So good to be with you again.
And I'm very happy to have you back here on the show. How are you?
I'm good. I just had to battle the rain to get here, but I'm good.
You've been so busy, but in this episode, I'm really happy to catch you. We'll explore the delicate balance between human intuition and machine intelligence in legal decision making. So I'll start this critical discussion right away. In your view, what should always remain in human hands within legal decision making, Lena?
I think that law is more than just about mechanical justice. And so when we're dealing with decisions involving a person's life or liberty, their freedom, etc., then definitely there should be a human in the loop in making that final decision. And yes, of course, the judge can be informed by how other judges have dealt with similar factual scenarios, but ultimately, I think the final decision should be left with a human being. That's what I think. And also, when we're dealing with strategic decisions, when we are looking at a case and we're looking about, what points should we run, what points shouldn't we run? Yes, you can use your AI to help you find all the possible kinds of points that you can run. Some may be simple, obvious points, and others may be more obscure technical points. But it's the human being, the experience of the lawyer that counts in this scenario, because otherwise we would have law students graduating from law school who would be just as valuable as a lawyer with 10 years, 20 years, 30 years experience. But what that lawyer with 10, 20, or 30 years experience brings to the table is that they know more likely than not which arguments are more likely to succeed than others. And what we learned up front, and when I first started working for the judges, what I learned was that judges are guided by the merits of the case. They will try to fashion an outcome that is in line with the merits of the case. And so if there's two ways of going down a case and two different decisions that can be made, or, for example, win, lose, imprisonment, let out, etc. They'll go down a path that, if they can, that is in line with the merits of the case. But if you are trying to run a very technical argument, that is available, and the cases will show you that these technical arguments are available, but they lead to an outcome that is not in line with the merits of the case, you will find that a judge is less likely to go down that path. And their inclination will be to go down a path that is in line with the merits of the case. And these are these are factors that only experience can inform the lawyer as to, which points should be run and which points shouldn't be run, which points are more likely to succeed and which points are less likely to succeed.
Yeah, so it depends on the merits of the case. Very clearly explained. So it's just it's that level of human empathy, I guess, and understanding that AI can really always replicate. I mean, it's reassuring to know that when it comes to the most critical aspects of justice, the human touch remains indispensable. And I think it's just a timely reminder that while AI can process data, it lacks the human touch, the experience of a real lawyer that's essential in matters of profound consequences. And building on that, Lena, let's consider the limitations of AI in legal context. What are some judgment calls that AI can never replicate, even with more data?
Well, I was discussing this actually with my in-house counsel yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And for example, a lot of the time you have cases that run simply because the client says it's a matter of principle. I want to run this case as a matter of principle. Even if the data shows that, they only have a 50% chance of succeeding, or even if their case is maybe it's not even 50-50, maybe it's only arguable. It's arguable, but it's, you can't say on the balance of probability that their case is likely to succeed, but they feel cheated, right? So they want to have justice in the court. They want, to have their day in court. They want to have their stories aired, and they want to have say. But if you only looked at the data, then the AI may say, no, do not recommend proceeding with this case because, you are not more likely than not to succeed in this case. But a human being, the party, the plaintiff, may be motivated by different reasons, as I said. They may feel cheated. They want to have their day in court. So similarly, sometimes I have found when you're doing mediations, I've had mediations where we've managed to settle a case, even though it seemed to the client that there was no way we would be able to settle the case, simply because we didn't have enough money in our pockets to pay the other side, or we felt, there was no way we would want to settle because we just thought that the plaintiff had a very bad case. But I've been able to secure settlements in these cases where we've managed to give the plaintiff or the defendant in that case their voice. And so they've been able to say in the mediation context how they felt cheated, how they felt let down. And then the other side has been able to hear that and then address those concerns of the other side. And in that way, both parties have been able to air their grievances and then come to a place where both felt that they had gotten it off their chest, and maybe their view of the world wasn't exactly quite what it was. Maybe they weren't actually, the other side wasn't really trying to cheat them, etc. And so in those cases, I've had to spend quite a bit of time, and sometimes maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, before we even get to the merits of the case, before we even start talking money because, those are the kinds of cases that I do. Even before we start talking about money, I've had to spend sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours getting the parties together in the same room to air their grievances and to just get it off their chest so that both parties feel like the air is cleared, and then they can get on with the business of resolving the issues in the case between them. And, then by that time, it's just a question of money. So AI can't help with that. AI wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know if AI would. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know whether it would tell you that you would have to spend quite a bit of time, addressing the underlying issue between the parties, which is often not the legal issues. Because the legal issues in the case is really only what their lawyers have come up with, how the lawyers have taken the facts of what have happened and then put a legal complexion on it. But at the base of it all, the real dispute between the parties, what the parties are really feeling, all those things have to be addressed. I think can only be addressed by the two parties coming together and then having that. It's like a therapy session.
Yeah, I know. And what you said, it's a crucial distinction and a compelling point, Lena. I mean, efficiency is really valuable, but without your real world experience, we risk losing the essence of justice, which is not just about facts. It's about fairness, as you said, feeling not being cheated, which requires a human perspective. And speaking of human perspective, let's talk about intuition in legal strategy. Where do you see the balance of intuition and information in legal strategy?
Well, for me, what your question you're really asking me is about Daniel Kahneman's slow thinking, fast thinking.
Okay.
So what you might call as intuition,
Uh-huh.
I interpret it as my experience. So you might come to me with your legal problem and you tell me this is what's happened.
Uh-huh.
And my instinct would be to say, which is really based on my experience,
Yeah.
would be to say to you, oh, this is what I think. That's my fast thinking, that's my intuition. But I think that that is completely a function of my experience and my knowledge. But then I shouldn't be just acting on that. I should then go away and then do some research to confirm that my intuition and my instinct and my
Are on the
first reaction
Mhm.
is correct.
Yeah.
So be careful to fully serve your client. You shouldn't be just acting on intuition or your fast thinking. You
Mhm.
need to also go away and do the work to make sure that your intuition was correct.
Yeah. So the
So you need
fusion,
to do both.
so the fusion of seasoned intuition like yours and solid data creates a robust legal strategy. And considering the rise of predictive technologies, how can lawyers maintain their unique value when tech becomes more predictive?
I think it's predictive anyway, but it's only predicting the way language models work. It's just a question of probability. So it's
Mhm.
just predicting what the next words in the chain might be. It can't really understand, at least not at this stage, it can't really understand at all what it is reading.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of the AI reading all the materials, reading in a sense, but predicting what is the likely next words that follow after a set of words. You know, now at the moment, if you go on iMessage and you're in your typing away, you get predictive
Mhm.
text, don't you? It starts to tell you what your next words might be.
Yeah.
Have you
Mhm.
noticed that?
Yeah.
That's just the AI predicting the likelihood that if you type this word, the next word is going to be whatever it is. You type
Mhm.
he,
Mhm.
might say the next word is or whatever it is. But this is just predicting, but not because it really understands. It's just
Right.
predicting the likelihood
Uh-huh.
that if you type a certain sequence of words, then the next sequence of words you are likely to type is this.
Yeah,
And
there's
so,
algorithm behind it.
yes, it's the language model, the transformers. It's just predicting. It's just as a matter of probability, it's worked out. If you type a certain sequence of words, then the next sequence of words is likely to be this. That's all we're at the moment. We don't have super intelligence in AI.
Mhm.
Everything it's doing is just predicting. And so when it's reading, all the language models are just trained on generic English language. It's not trained on the law. So when it's reading a book or put aside legal text, it's just learned from basically being trained on all the material on the internet
Mhm.
what the next likely set of words is. So I think we're so far from super intelligence. I think it has to be at least, before I might have said 5 years, but now I think it's even longer than that because in the process of getting our model ready for production, I understand now why nobody else has been able to solve this problem because the barriers to entry are so high. Not only do you need a lawyer who is really interested in research and has
Uh-huh.
spent a lot of time working out how research actually works and the process that one has to go through in order to do the research. And
Uh-huh.
then to also be able to have that mathematical brain to be able to reduce everything that I do as a
Like yours.
researcher down to an algorithm. Then
Mhm.
you need this crack team of AI coders led by a chief scientist who's like super, super accomplished, who has insights that the average person doesn't have. And you then have to be able to marry these two sets of knowledge together so that you have to be able to explain to your team of developers what it is you're trying to achieve. I spent a lot of time last week trying to explain to them that law is not natural language, and that while we're using LLMs, we've got many, many LLMs in our model, many, many layers of them, that those LLMs are only trained to read generic English. Law is not natural English. And so we're dealing with that problem as well. Then we have to deal with the problem of how I reason. And then we have to incorporate all my algorithms that I have written, all my system prompts, all my legal prompts, etc., into the model to get the model to behave
just
like a paralegal, like a paralegal with a PhD, for example, doing your research. And then on top of that, we need to have access to these incredibly expensive servers. I just really think this is not a plug for NVIDIA, but I really think we should be buying NVIDIA shares because we need to get access to these clusters of NVIDIA H100 servers to be able to run all the inference that we need to run on the NVIDIA servers. So and it's all so expensive. So you need money. You need the lawyer who has the knowledge and the ability to communicate with your team of developers. Your team of developers have to be super, 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 in the triple, right at the apex of developers, because what we're trying to do is solve a problem that nobody has ever solved yet. And then you have to have that confluence of factors come together. And then you have to also manage to do it in a way that is still affordable for your average user, so that, there comes a point, yes, we're saving them a lot of time and increasing their productivity, but the cost is so high that I just realized yesterday that I understand why nobody else has been able to solve this, because the barriers to entry are so high. And so I think that we're quite a way away from super intelligence, where we can say, oh, the AI is just going to be able to solve all these problems. Because I don't think the question is about whether or not the tech is going to become more predictive, because our model, yes, it relies upon predictive text because you have to, that's what the transformers do, but we also have to fine-tune and post-train our model so it knows how to read law, so that it knows how to predict the next sequence of words when you're reading a particular set of legal texts. So I think it's going to be a long way off before lawyers become redundant. I can't imagine. And at the end of the day, is lawyers controlling the tech anyway. And we bring so much to the table in terms of experience, etc., that all I'm hoping that the AI is going to do for me is to reduce the grind and to give me access to more knowledge and quicker, so that I can then use that knowledge to inform what my strategic decision should be.
And that's actually where human expertise truly shines. And as you would always say, experience is key. Lawyers understand the nuances of what works and what doesn't, because you bring context, experience, and critical thinking to the table. And while AI can predict outcomes based on data, as you elaborated earlier, it can't 100% understand the
motivation.
The subtleties of each case, or the human elements involved in each case. So it's really quite impossible in the near future, I guess. You're right.
Well, it's impossible. It's impossible because we don't know, when you're just reading the case, unless you're in the case, you don't know what the evidence was that was put before the judge. You don't know the full extent of the cases that were put before the judge. You don't know any of those things. All you have is the judgment. And in that judgment, that judge has prepared that judgment on the basis that they do not want to be appealed. So they will make all these factual findings, because factual findings are harder to appeal against. And they will craft their judgment in a way to protect them from appeal. I think that's the primary judge's main concern. They want to protect their judgment from appeal, and they want to, lock down the judgment. And so as the reader, unless you're in the case, you don't have all the data that was before the primary judge. So you don't know exactly what worked and what didn't work. All you have is the judge's view of what they say is important and what they say is not important. And they will not be revealing all of the material that was before them in the court. So the reader will never have perfect knowledge. They won't. It's just impossible. So while the cases are obviously very useful, they are not, they're biased, right? I mean, because they have the judges picked, cherry picked which bits of evidence they want to rely upon, which bits of evidence they don't want to rely upon. And even when you're looking at contracts that have been negotiated, we don't really know which of the previous versions that were in negotiation, which bits worked, which bits didn't work. Because at least in Australian law, when you're going to court over what a particular contract means, all the previous versions that you looked at, the parties dealt with during negotiation are not relevant. It's only the final version is relevant. So I don't think we will get to a position where there is enough data in the marketplace for the AI to become truly super intelligent. That's different for a particular law firm, of course. You can get to the state where the particular law firm will be able to mine their own knowledge.
Okay.
So you can use AI, and that's really expensive to do as well, to mine their own knowledge, to at least see from their own experience what has worked and what has not worked. And so you can get to that. But I just don't think that overall we will be getting to a position where humans can be replaced.
Yeah. Well, finally, let's look at the courtroom dynamics, Laina. Do you see AI complementing or eroding advocacy in courtrooms?
Well, advocacy is the art of persuasion. That's what it means.
Okay.
And so I think that the more data that you have when you are preparing your advocacy, the better an advocate you would be. And so in that way, I can see AI helping you, and AI can give you ideas on what matters you might be able to cross-examine on, what matters you might not be able to cross-examine on, and help you prepare your notes for court. But I don't think that it can replace you in court. Certainly not like that silly person who showed up in court in America and had a avatar.
Yeah.
Have an avatar present to the court because the avatar had no idea how to address the court, how to behave in court, and just really irritated the judges. And so, but you know, non-lawyers have a different view. They don't really understand what it is we do. They don't understand why what we do takes so long and why we cost so much. But that's because there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes before they actually finally see you in court, or before they see that final version of the contract. And so I think that AI can help us in the preparation, but I certainly do not see AI, an avatar, replacing the human in court.
I'm sure. Well, that's an encouraging perspective, Lena, enhancing, not actually replacing. It's obviously will allow lawyers to focus more on strategy and client interaction. AI as an ally in the pursuit of justice rather than viewing it as a threat can lead to more effective advocacy. And I think we managed to cover the indispensable role of human judgment in law, even as AI becomes more integrated into the legal system. So, Laina, thank you so much for generously sharing again your insights with us on the evolving landscape of the legal space. I really appreciate your presence every week. Your work at MiAI Law is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI, also ensuring that human elements of justice remain at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Miles.
Thank you, Laina. For our audience, if you're interested in learning more about MiAI Law, be sure to visit miai.law. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey with Laina as we commit to bringing you conversations that challenge, inspire, and inform. I hope you catch more of our episodes soon. This has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with XRaised.